Hey, what's happening, everybody? It's your man, Dame DNYDC. Two mics up, business corner, brand new season. And tonight we have a very, very special guest. You know, when I say authentic, genuine, full of purpose, especially, for, a community that, a lot of times is overlooked. It's really abused at times, if you will, marginalized. I can go on and on and on about the adjectives and things that tonight's guest that's joining me on the other mic is going to be talking about and really sharing with us. And I really felt it was important, starting off this new season and starting off the new year was important to really focus in on a serious topic, something that really needs to be discussed, I think, more in depth and really further throughout many of our communities. So without further ado, ladies and gentlemen, joining me tonight on the other mic is our amazing guest, Dr. Simone Kolysh. Dr. Simone Kolysh, how are you doing this evening?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm doing great, and I'm really excited to really have you on today and really talking about the body of work, if you will, that you're doing. But before we really get into that, I cannot go on without asking you to take a moment and introduce yourself to our audience today.
Hi, everyone. I'm very happy to be here. I'm Dr. Simone Kolysh. I'm a 39-year-old mother of four who lives in Frederick, Maryland. And I'm here to talk about a variety of topics impacting marginalized communities all over the world. And I'm just really grateful for this opportunity because, like our host said, it's not discussed enough. In general, I'm an academic with a varied background. I have tons of degrees and experience, but I really just want to talk as one frustrated person in the world to many, many others tonight.
Well, let's just start right there, right? You mentioned as a frustrated person and a frustrated human being in
Yep.
the world today. Let's just really get into it. What is it that really has you frustrated, with the world that unfortunately that we're living in today?
I am noticing that we are really running into a lot of worsening inequality over the
Mm,
past 2 decades.
hmm.
I studied gender, sexuality, race, class, inequality in general. But I think over the past 5, 6 years, some
Hmm.
of these issues have worsened. And as there's more attention on what's going on worldwide, at least for the American audience, people are feeling lost and confused. And COVID in particular has exacerbated some of the things that marginalized communities were facing anyhow, but the fault
Hmm.
lines are as evident as ever. So, for example, the lack of masking and healthcare protections right now is frustrating me around the holidays because COVID is still with us. So is RSV, so is flu, all these new strains. And as a public health professional and a parent and someone who's immunocompromised, I'm
Mm.
especially watchful of the statistics, but I think the general public has moved on due to the failure of our administration and the CDC. And I wish that we could protect people who are most disproportionately impacted by COVID and
Mm.
health inequality anyhow, but that part gets dropped out. And so I continue to bring it to people's attention that this is a racial issue, this is a class issue, this
That's
is an
issue. Yep.
the most vulnerable people who are disabled, who should not be overlooked, for the sake of everyone's convenience. And then I think, this being election year, a lot of people are trying to figure out where we are politically and
Yeah.
then what's going on in terms of how we're spending our tax dollars
Yeah.
overseas and the many
Yep.
wars and other issues taking place right now in Ukraine, Palestine, Congo. And so I'm, as an educator, paying attention to whether people are being informed, you know,
Right.
and at the K through 12 level and the higher ed level, because I'm also a college professor, and I'm seeing an attack on
Mm.
education at
Mm-hmm.
every stage, and that creates a much more kind of ignorant public that
Yeah.
is then surprised about
True.
where the taxes are going,
True.
or what's happening to their children's resources. And
Yeah.
so to me, it's more of just how can we, educate and inform people, and what are the platforms that people rely on. And so I take every opportunity to go on every podcast, to go on every show, to go on every into every classroom that invites me to talk to people about current events. And I hear that folks want to learn terminology, they want
Mm-hmm.
to know the facts, they want to have some basics in order to discuss controversial so-called topics. And
Right.
so that's why I think over the years I really shifted into being a public figure, a
Mm-hmm.
public intellectual, or an activist that continues to speak out for as long as I'm able to. But I'm worried about censorship taking
Mm.
place across all educational
Yeah.
frameworks. Just
Yeah.
today, Dr. Claudine Gay resigned
She
from being
resigned. Exactly. Yeah. Saw that.
Harvard
Mm-hmm.
first Black president, female president. And it's something that's indicative of the general climate taking place in higher
Agreed.
ed, as we also see humanities, social sciences, women's studies under attack across many universities.
You know, Dr. Simone, you've touched on a plethora of things just in those couple of moments, and I want to be very tactful, but I'm going to be sincere and honest. We live in a society now that as much as as much as many say they are engaged or want to be engaged, they're not. And I just have to say, I think social media, and our mental capacity to stay focused on task, is really troublesome. And that's just really the tip of the iceberg. I'm not even going to transition into education and things, but I think you said it very well. There's a plethora of things going on. But I say all of that to say is, you know, was this or were these things, prior to today's climate, were these things the things that built up, within you and in your space that really spurned the idea, for you to start, your business and start Defiant Life Coaching? Because I think that's really critical to really understand the spark behind it, and what other key elements really filled your cup so that you can now fill others' cups through your life coaching.
Yeah, so I had, a pretty standard immigrant upbringing here in the United States, where
Hmm.
I wanted to be a physician. And so I
Okay.
completed a degree in biology at NYU, and I learned of how we mistreated certain populations through our
Mm.
healthcare. And that led me
Hmm.
to do a master's in public health, which informed me a lot more about inequality. And so I then worked with people who were facing cancer for a
Hmm.
couple of years on behalf of the American Cancer Society. And I was able to see in real life how those inequalities impact whether people live or die. And so the spark for kind of social justice and thinking this is unfair and wondering how can we let this happen really began then. And I burnt out trying to support patients and get them grant money and get them access, and so I wanted to understand why society is unequal. So I got a PhD in sociology, and
Okay.
and because I worked through that time and I had another kid, and I was struggling myself in New York, I realized that higher ed and graduate school, as much as it gives us an explanation for social inequality, which is what I sought out, it also reproduces it.
Mm. Good point.
It's not leveling the playing field as much as it should. And so I still finished and wrote my first book. It's called Everyday Violence: The Public Harassment of Women and LGBTQ People. And I
Mhm.
was a rising star and got a coveted tenure track position here in
Wow.
Maryland in 2019. And then I moved, the pandemic happened, and I found myself at an institution that wanted someone progressive and someone who speaks
Hmm.
openly against white supremacy and homophobia and sexism, but not the way I do it. And I found
Ah.
myself struggling, because I was also disabled and am disabled, and
Mm.
seeking accommodations, and felt that I wasn't provided those. And this is all leading up
Wow.
to final spark in a minute. And so
Right.
eventually I was fired. And to
Oh.
someone like me, who has previously defined their worth by success, productivity, and achievement, that was a
Mm.
real turning point, because
Mhm.
what turned out to be a blessing in disguise was
God, yeah.
this journey where I had to figure out who I am outside of my professional achievements, my
Hmm.
credential path, and who I am outside of motherhood. And
Right.
it led me to this to a few years of significant healing and re-education to figure out what feels authentic to me. And
Mm.
when I came to understand I'm autistic, everything shifted.
Oh.
And it was then that I interacted with an autistic life coach for the first time. I never had a
Wow.
provider who is like me, and it changed my life. But what I also realized is that in the health and wellness and life coaching space, there aren't many autistic professionals or any
Mm.
professionals or anyone multiply marginalized who is able to connect
Wow.
the kind of inspirational, transformational aspect of life coaching with
Wow.
with the honest conversation about oppression and facing it, and
Yeah.
being able to
Yeah.
bridge those sort of industries.
Yeah.
And so I licked my wounds and launched my business. And I had at the time a following on TikTok, a following on Twitter, and it's been wonderful to work with people who have seen me be myself, who
Right.
in front of whom I did not hide or mask all the wonderful things about who I am. But
Who you are.
um,
Right.
it's been it's been really rewarding for me to be someone who recognizes people the way that autistic life coach recognized me. Is
That's a
That's how it
beautiful.
all kind of came to be.
Yeah, that's a beautiful thing because that that is a lot for one person's plate, and to be able to find someone who actually was able to, for better words, identify and jive with where you were and where you are in your space is really important. And I'm going to be honest, whether it be autistic or not, it's really important to find that person or be able to have that person, that connection. And that really means a lot for so many of us, no matter what type of therapy, coaching, or whatever you're going through,
Mhm.
sometimes to get over that hurdle or whatever hurdle you may have in your life. But what I'm curious to know too, then, once you made that connection and you found your authentic self and being comfortable in your authentic self and in your business, what would you say was or is, your mission and vision, when you first started and while you're coaching, others today? Because I think that's important, for business owners to understand. They really need to have a mission and vision that drives, what they're doing. And what was that for you?
I want other adults to feel free to be themselves. I want them
Mm.
to be uncensored and unapologetic in who they are. I find that a lot of us millennials and Gen Xers are still apologizing for the fact that we are autistic or disabled or
Mm.
LGBTQ, or perhaps not interested in having children or in having lots of children. And I want people to know that there are resources out there and people out there who will affirm their being fully themselves. And a lot of people come to me who are in the same place I was in a few years back. They come for career coaching and business coaching as well, because they're saying that they feel suffocated where they are. They're saying they feel unable to thrive in their current position, their 9 to 5, or even able to afford life in general. Like,
Right.
poverty is a real issue
The
for
real thing.
many people, and for many parents, and for many people who are becoming ever more disabled. And so the vision is, how can I be honest at all times in how I come across, and how can that be the driving force behind who hires me? So it's
Right.
interesting because I entered the life coaching industry. I'm glad that I did not know of it before, because I did not want to rely on what's worked for other people. I just wanted to forge my own path. And so, for example, a lot of people advise that you have to like email folks and cold DM them and cold call them 20 times a day. And I thought, oh, I could never do that, because I would never want
Right.
that done to me. And it
Right.
feels really scammy. And I'm just gonna grow it slowly but much more organically. And so
Right.
whenever I find myself swayed, or maybe like a little bit experiencing FOMO, fear of missing out, or thinking, should I be doing it some other way? I come
Right.
back to the mission and vision of saying, you have to do this your own way. No one has you don't have to do it like anyone else, and that's going to be why the clients that are attracted to you will work with
Yeah.
you. And that has worked out in the following manner, because I did not really like hide my business from my regular TikTok or regular Twitter, where I'm outspoken and political and activist and all that. People said that the reason they hired me was because our values aligned, and the reason they don't hire
Mhm.
other people is because they're not really able to see what those people's values are, or if they're
Right.
going to need to educate those people on their personal life experience. And so I find that just being myself now allows other people to be more themselves. And when they are more themselves unapologetically, they can successfully transition into their own self-employment, entrepreneurship, running their own consultancy, whatever a lot of us want, which is flexibility, remote
Right.
work, being able to set our own hours. And it all comes back to the point I made of our feeling like we are adults who are respected instead of exploited.
Mm, that's very well said. Couldn't have not said that any better. Ladies and gentlemen, we are here today on Two Mics Up Business Corner, you know, sitting with Dr. Simone Kolysh, and she's really been, opening up, my eyes and really sharing, what's made her successful, not only in her life and through her life's journey, uh, but in her business and what she's giving back to the community. So before we continue, I just want to take a quick pause for the cause and step away and say thank you, to our sponsors here at Two Mics Up, who, without their continued support, we wouldn't be able to bring such great content like we're bringing you today. So stay tuned and we'll be right back after this short break. Two Mics Up advertising partners are committed to creating something greater. TD3 Insurance Agency at the National Harbor, owned by Clifton Durham, is an independent insurance agency established in March of 2021. TD3 represents 20 plus carriers, which insures all of the DMV, New York, and North Carolina with auto, home, commercial, and more. Devontae M. and Anna C. of 94 Media House, which is a small company that provides digital design services to other small business owners and creators. Services include web design, graphic design, brand identity development, and social media management. The entrepreneurship lawyer Shakira Gold Ramirez. Business owners, don't delay. Contact Shakira Gold Ramirez Esquire today. Shakira helps you secure your brand, secure your assets, and secure your bag. Now, let's get back to the show, and thank you to our Two Mics Up advertising partners. All right, ladies and gentlemen, we fresh out the break. We're back with Dr. Simone Kolysh, Defiant life coach, author. I mean, this woman has really done so much and touched so many. And I don't know if you just got to this point. I don't know how. You need to go back to the first half and catch up on all the gems that Dr. Simone has really shared with us today. And Dr. Simone, I want to just kind of change up for a minute. And you know, this business corner segment is about business and entrepreneurs. And it's one of my favorite questions to ask coming out of the break is really what makes Defiant Life Coaching unique? Because I think that's really important that people understand, what makes you and your service and your business so unique.
That's a great question. And what makes it unique is me, right? I am the brand
Uh-huh.
and I am the product. But I am also a real human being. So
Mm.
our expertise as humans comes from our education, our work experience, and our lived experience. And
Mhm.
no one has your specific combination of all three. And
Right.
I feel that through my lived experience as an immigrant, as an LGBTQ person, as a non-binary person, which I did not tell you, so I actually use they, them pronouns. I'm telling the audience now, as a mother, as someone, who's had a refugee childhood, and who has navigated a ton of conditions like autism, Ehlers-Danlos syndrome, PMDD, and Hashimoto's. This is what allows me to see and realize where others are at. And because I'm autistic, what's wonderful is that I am able to look through all of the complexities of someone's life and be able to figure out concrete steps they can take, in the short term and in the long term, to kind of um, find more ease and find more peace. What I find in a lot of people is pain and anguish and real kind of just over it at this time. And these people who are vulnerable and marginalized deserve to survive. They deserve care from psychiatrists and therapists and life coaches like myself. But what's unique is that I'm not going to BS you. I'm not going
Right.
to lie. I'm going to meet you where you are. And because of my training in harm reduction, being trauma informed, there's no judgment, right? So for some of
Mm.
the most difficult things that people go through, like being burnt out, being addicted, having trouble in communicating, making friends, all of these things that make life really messy, I'm
Huh?
okay with the mess. And I'm competent and capable at this point to look at your own mess and be like, here's what I advise you to do. But what's unique, I think I've been talking with other life coaches about this. I don't think that we heal other people. I think that I'm here to help
Mm.
you heal yourself. So I'm sort of like an educator and a resource and like a Google who's autistic, and
Mm.
I'm also a wealth of lived experience. But what's gonna happen when you work with me is you're ultimately going to get to a place of feeling confident and capable in making decisions for yourself, in no longer apologizing for those decisions. And essentially, I try to work myself out of a job, but there are so many, there are so many people needing support that that's not an issue. But
Right.
I think folks come and say they've worked with lots of other people and they are very self-aware. They are very eloquent about what's going on and what they're feeling, but they need a plan, and they need someone who does not judge if they don't execute it right away. So my
Right.
understanding, people who have ADHD or autism or other neurodivergence, means that I'm not like other life coaches who are like, let's set these goals and let's blow them out of the water. I'm someone who
Right.
says, okay, if you weren't able to meet your goal, that's fine. That's part of how our disabilities
Disability
work.
works.
You
Right.
know, and we have to forgive ourselves, or we need to prioritize rest, or life is just a bunch of lessons and change, and it's all right. Like you don't have to live it some particular way in order to be
Sail away.
successful. and
Mm.
and not only did I learn that the hard way, but I think it's important for people to say, what does success look like to me, instead of me telling
Mm.
them, here's what's
Them.
productive and here's what's successful. Let's get you exercising. Let's get you
That's
come to
very
me.
interesting.
I help you identify your own priorities, and then I celebrate those as much as I would celebrate someone finishing grad school. I'm celebrating someone who's quitting it. As much as I'm
That's very
celebrating someone
interesting.
who's married, I'm celebrating someone who's brave to get a divorce. And it's
Mm.
kind of just saying this is what human experience is
Experience
like.
it. Yeah. Yeah.
It's
No,
it's not, and it doesn't have to look like mine or like theirs, but it could look like yours, and you're enough.
exactly. Exactly. And that's a very clear picture. And I think that's a great analogy in the way that you explained it. And that is a very unique uh talent, ability, and it's really, like you said, it's for some, it may not be for everybody, but it is for some, and it's a great option. And I'm glad
Yep.
that we're able to have you on today and talk about that. And we're coming to the back end of today's amazing conversation, but I do want to ask, because I think this is really, really important from listening, to your story, your journey, your life's journey, all of the things that you have mentioned that you have had to deal with, identifying, autistic, being autistic. For anyone listening, I think this is really important. Simone, Dr. Simone, what, is your message to people, and what should they take away from your struggle? Because I think that's really important, because you have really opened up my eyes to so much going on in your life. But there may be someone that's watching this or listening to this, and I want to know what your message is to them, and what should they take away from your struggle.
That when we are children, teenagers, and young adults, we learn and are conditioned to believe that there are systems and metrics and measurements that we need to engage with and meet, and these are the standards by which we measure our worth.
Mm,
But it turns out that things never go according to plan,
mm-hmm,
and perhaps you don't fit in terms of your gender, your sexual identity, your racial or cultural background, how your body looks and behaves, including your mind. And
mm,
that's part of life too, and you are just as important, if not more important, because what we need to see in our media and in general is a variety of human experiences. And so
yes,
I
yes.
know that I struggled understanding my autism because I never knew, um, until I met this wonderful community of autistic people across social media, how it can look different from what's out there on when you Google it,
Mm-hmm,
and and how when I was younger, I never imagined that I could be a lesbian person married to a woman and have a house and a family, because it just wasn't something I could imagine. And so what I think the message is, imagine it. Whatever you're
mm,
imagining is faded in a sense. You wouldn't be imagining something about you or your career or your goals if it wasn't for you. And so sometimes
true.
throughout my life, I thought, well, how could I be like these brave people? I would look at other older people that I saw during pride parades or
Mm-hmm,
on TV and be like, I can't be like them. They're so brave and they're like able to do so much. And then I learned, and this is the message, it turns out that that brave person is you. And I've
yeah,
taught enough undergrads and grad students to know that in 10 years, they became the lawyers, the politicians, the doctors, the lobbyists, the authors, which they did not see at 18 and 19, but they had
right,
inklings, dreams, and stuff. And so
right.
it is you. You are the person that's very needed, very worthwhile. I always say you have inherent worth and deserve access to all rights. And actually, just recognizing that could really transform one's life. And I make my
That's
students
a
put it
very good
on a
point.
post it. I have them put it on a post it because they're like, oh yeah, Professor Kolish is so cheesy, and it's true. But if you actually start to ask, like, if I have inherent worth, why isn't this person respecting me, or this job respecting me, or this, situation? And if I deserve access to all rights, then why don't I have access to X, Y, and Z? And like,
Yeah.
path what is the path of advocacy, or agitating for change in order for all of us to have access to all rights? So
Right.
I think the other thing that I've been thinking about is how community oriented healing should be, and how
Mm.
unfortunately often it's just one on one, like when I work with people one on one. But it's actually also about seeing yourself as as interdependent with
Yeah. Partner.
others. and
Hmm. Yeah.
and that part of your healing is actually going to then be, as you said, what are you going to do to fill other people's cups when you
Hmm.
stabilize and you start to regulate your nervous system? Then you're going to
Right.
see what gifts and what lived experience you need to share with others so that they can be pulled up too. That's like
Mm.
our
I love
duty.
that. I love that. I love that. Look, ladies and gentlemen, this has been Dr. Simone Kolysh. She has been amazing. She's been authentic. And I appreciate you, Dr. Simone, for taking time out of your schedule to sit here and really just talk with us about yourself, about the work that you're doing in the community. I really appreciate it. Before we go, if you want to take a moment, please go ahead and provide us, leave us with your social media information. We'll make sure we put that all in the show notes. We want to make sure we get our audience to go out and support. If anyone is in need, knows of a family member, a community member that could use support and service such as what Dr. Simone is providing, we want to make sure we get your social media information out there to those in need.
Thank you. I really appreciate that. Everyone can go to my website, which is www.defiantlifecoaching.com, and to find Defiant Life Coaching on Facebook, YouTube, X, TikTok, Blue Sky, and I'm considering a few more. But what I wanted to speak about today is that I'm running a holiday sale until January 9th, where all my prices are slashed and so are my packages. So if you just go and check that out, I'd really appreciate it. But also, if you're unsure, I run free 30-minute consultations 7 days a week, morning and night.
All right, and there you have it. We'll go ahead and leave that up there for a second. Like I said, we'll make sure we put that in the show notes. We'll make sure we get your social media information in the show notes. Ladies and gentlemen, it's been another, amazing business corner segment. I thank you for your time and sitting here, with us. I am
Thank
your
you.
host, Damon Cunningham, hosted Two Mics Up. You can catch Two Mics Up every Monday night, season 6, on the Mogul Global TV Network, the number one network for positive programming. You can go ahead and you can follow Two Mics Up Business Corner on our YouTube channel. We are expanding, we're growing our business corner. We want to bring more individuals like Dr. Simone to your home and go ahead and get you connected, because we have so many gems and so many nuggets in each of our communities. It's time to really reach out, get the help that we need, get the education that we need, get the empowerment that's necessary so that we can positively to continue to impact our communities. And hey, like we always do on every segment of Two Mics Up, ladies and gentlemen, I'm going to leave you with three things. May you stay safe, stay blessed. Mics out.